Welcome back to the Vault. Hi, I'm Mike Wacola. We've already talked about the single purpose entity, the SPE. That is the custom LLC you build to produce one specific movie. Think of it as a submarine. You send it into the danger zone, and if it sinks, it only takes down whatever is inside it. But where does the submarine deploy from? Here is the trap. Most independent producers form one LLC, put all of their unproduced scripts in it, put their development cash in it, and then use the exact same LLC to hire a stunt coordinator and shoot a movie. Something goes wrong on set and you get sued. The plaintiff doesn't just take the movie, they take the LLC. They take your entire catalog of scripts, they wipe you out completely. You need a holding company, and that holding company needs an operating agreement. You need to build the naval base. It stays safe on the shore, incubating your scripts, while the SPE takes all the physical risk. So before we dive in, we got to go through our typical disclaimers. Um, First, it is for educational purposes only. This document is provided for educational and informational purposes and is intended to serve as a starting point for a drafting tool. It does not constitute legal advice, legal representation, or legal opinions. Two, no attorney-client relationship. Downloading, reading, or using this template does not create an attorney-client relationship between you, the user, and the Nonde Filmmaking Lab or any of its authors. You are not a client of the lab, and the lab is not acting as your legal counsel. Three, jurisdiction and variations. This template is drafted and designed for basic United States contract law and common industry principles and practices. Local review is always strongly advised. Have a local qualified attorney review your documents. Four, use this at your own risk. You're the adult, you're the producer. The filmmaking lab takes no liability for any errors, omissions, or legal consequences arising out of the use of this document. And then finally, just some quick um, operating agreement notes. This is the master vault. Like I said, it's the parent company. It does not make anything, incubates everything. It owns 100% of all the other SPEs that you launch and create that do make the movies. The firewall is the main thing here. Section 3 explicitly bans the LLC from engaging in physical production. If you hire a stunt coordinator through the LLC and something goes wrong, they can sue for the scripts by forcing the physical production into separate SPEs. The holding company remains legally untouchable fortress. And then the closed ecosystem, Section 6, ensures that your co-founders cannot secretly sell their 50% stake in the parent company to a stranger, and it locks the gates. So let's dive in. Again, all the brackets are usually highlighted in yellow what needs to be replaced. You need to state what state this is from. If it's Delaware, if it's California. It is an operating agreement that is launched on said day. It is formation again in the state. It is for a broad purpose. But unlike a single purpose entity vehicle, the purpose of this is broad. It is to establish and develop and acquire and hold and maintain intellectual property. Then the principal place of business, and then the limitation of liability. You want to always establish your limitation of liability. If you are an LLC, you want to have that explicitly stated. Operating agreement in this paragraph establishes that you are not taking any liability. Next, this is a member managed LLC. Remember, we have manager managed and member managed. Excuse me, this is a manager managed LLC. Remember, we have manager managed LLC and member managed LLCs. It's always good to have a manager managed LLC. That way, the individual is not taking any necessary risk. And so the manager here would end up being one of the owners of this whole company. And the authority of the managers is to do what's needed for the business, acquiring and optioning intellectual property, forming subsidiaries, opening bank accounts. And then section 2.3 is really important. It is the tiebreaker metrics. It basically establishes who has what roles, who has what tiebreaker roles. You can fill this out and get as complex as you want or as simple as you want, but always have a tiebreaker metrics. Never launch the parent company with a 50-50 split without a tiebreaker. You and your founder disagree on something, then the company freezes. So make sure you know who has what authority from day one. Here is the fact that you might appoint officers and then waiver of fiduciary duties. In some states like Delaware, you can waive your fiduciary duties. That's where you would do that here. Other times you don't want to do that to show your investors that you actually care and are strongly invested in this movie. That means that you then have liabilities. So now let's turn to clause 3. This is your firewall. This clause explicitly bans your holding company from ever engaging in physical film production. It legally forbids this LLC from hiring anyone doing anything on set, renting grip trucks, securing locations. You want to shoot a movie, this holding company must form a legally distinct subsidiary, an SPE, and push the physical production down into that new entity. This clause guarantees that your parent company remains an untouchable fortress. So again, it says that you'll have to use subsidiaries. It says that you can't engage in physical production. That is the key for that. The next thing you want to look at is capital contributions because every company needs capital contributions. This establishes that and says how they be measured on an Exhibit A, which is basically just a spreadsheet document that you would attach to this contract. It would have the name of the member, how much they invested, and what percentage of ownership they own. And then this is your tax classifications. It establishes how you're going to tax the members. And then distributions. This is basically like a mini waterfall that you're going to have established throughout the Exhibit A waterfall or the Exhibit A that is attached to this. But it basically generates your cash flow and where the money is going, who's in the first position, who's in second position, and then who's in third position. For this case, first position is the company for their debts, fees, and legal liabilities. The second case is reasonable corporate reserve fund so that you can have money going in to fund and pay people's jobs as well as future development. And then the third position is the members on a pro rata basis according to the percentage of ownership. Section 6 is basically the closed ecosystem. You worked with specific partners. You only want to work with those partners, so there's no unauthorized transfers. And if there is, then the right of first refusal kicks in, which if a member receives a bona fide offer to buy their shares, the managers consent to the sale, the company and the remaining members shall have the absolute right of first refusal to purchase those shares on the exact same terms. So here we're doing something favorable to the person who's selling, but we're also handcuffing them. We're saying that if they get a great deal, we still have first refusal, but we have to match those terms of the deal, and they have to be a realistic deal. Again, Section 7 is our clear no injunctive relief. We never want to be sued for anything other than monetary damages. We don't want to stop the production. We don't want to stop the holding company, so those are not allowed. Delusion and IP reversion, dissolution, excuse me, and IP reversion. This is basically how the company will dissolve and then what will happen to said IP. Then your miscellaneous laws or miscellaneous clauses, like your governing law, which states what government, which state is in charge of the laws for this contract, and then your exculpation and your indemnification. This basically says that no manager or officer shall be liable to the company or any member for any loss or damage incurred for any reason or act performed from their role. This basically says if someone's operating in good faith as a manager that they can be sued for it. And then indemnification, again, we want to establish the LLC is a limited liability company, and therefore we want to establish that indemnification. And then finally, severability that says if any of this is deemed invalid, only that section will be removed and not the full contract. Then you'll slide down to where this is our signature page, and you'll have the member one sign their signature, member two sign their signature, and then you'll scroll over and attach an exhibit where you'll list the full members' names, their capital contributions, and their signatures. This is, again, the operating agreement for the holding company. So in our ecosystem, what we would like to see happen is three distinct entities. We would like to have one, the holding company that holds the asset, the development funds, and anything that is valuable. And they license and lease and do contracts only with your production company. And that production company, if it is a true production company, will then form individual SPEs, single purpose entities, to go out and make said individual movies. So if you have three movies, you would have one, a holding company, two, an LLC operations company, which is your production company, and three, a individual LLC for said three movies. So three different LLCs there. And then that can be broken up into something called a series LLC, which we'll talk about later, which is one company with just every bank account being a different LLC, or filing three distinct LLCs for those three movies. You'll see an image in the blog post that kind of elaborates and spells all this out. So again, that is the holding company LLC operating agreement. It's how you build a permanent infrastructure for your career, completely insulated from the physical dangers of the film set. Your next steps: download the template in the link below, build the firewall, move your unproduced scripts into this entity. So have contracts, read the option and purchase agreement that is uploaded in the vault, use that, and buy your assets from yourself and transfer them over into this holding company. And then deploy the SPEs. Never shoot a single frame of footage under your parent company's name. Deploy it under the single purpose entity. File a new LLC. Stop risking your entire library on one shoot. Secure your armor and let's get to work. Thanks for visiting the Nande Filmmaking Legal Lab.